Hello, everyone. Let's see what we have in store today for our reading. And yes, I'll be taking only one editorial today, the first one of the Indian Express. And we have a few words today. Yeah, एक एक दिन के लिए चल जाएगा मतलब यार, इतने words हैं हमारे पास. So I hope you are noting down the words. I keep on repeating this because this is what the objective of the discussion is, that you read it, read the article, follow this, come up with the difficult words, write down the difficult words, and just go through those words, say in 5 to 6 days. ठीक है, सिर्फ उसे पढ़ना है एक. You don't need to cram the words, you don't need to wrote the words. This is what I've been telling you constantly. ठीक है, सो हम पढ़ते हैं. देखें अब एडिटोरियल इस हफ्ते हमने क्या किया है. वी आर कमिंग अप विथ how we can understand the editorial or the article, but from a critical reasoning point of view, right? If you have not heard these articles, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, तो kindly go through them. ठीक है, उसमें समझ में आएगा कि critical reasoning questions का answer हम कहाँ और कैसे ढूंढ सकते हैं. That is the major point, because this is one section of the CLAT or any exam you can say where you need to come up with a logical bent of mind. ये तो होना ही है. राइटर्स के आर्टिकल्स को, उनके ओपिनियंस को हम किस तरीके से समझेंगे, दैट इज व्हाट द होल एक्सरसाइज इज अबाउट. बिकॉज यूजुअली व्हाट हैपेंस, वी थिंक वी अंडरस्टैंड वट एवर वी वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड, और हमें लगता है कि हाँ, हमें तो लैंग्वेज आती है, हम तो सब समझ सकते हैं. We need to understand, but from a different aspect, from a different point of view, the point of view of the author. क्योंकि ऑथर ने आर्टिकल लिखा है तो इसका मतलब ही हैज समथिंग इन हिज माइंड व्हिच ही हैज टू कन्वे, राइट? और हमारा काम है कि वो जो कन्वे किया है उसने, हम उसको अच्छे से समझें. Therefore, it needs a different angle of reading. Let's see what we can do today in our editorial here. That is the stolen treasure. So, a feature of the cultural ferment in the country is a growing interest in heritage. Historical artifacts, the Kohinoor, for instance, are being drawn into nationalist narratives. Narratives यानी कहानियां होती हैं. The government has signed agreements with museums in the UK, US, and Australia to repatriate Indian antiquities. जो चीजें, जो antiquities, देखो उसे एक word दिया है heritage, और यहाँ पर word दिया है antiquities, which you can relate to the word antique. ठीक है, तो antique यानी पुराना, तो जो पुरानी चीजें हैं उन्हें वापस से लाया जाए. Some of these objects were taken away from the country during colonial times. It is well known that an overwhelming majority of heritage items have found their way into foreign museums through illicit antique trading networks. Now, an investigation by this newspaper, in association with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, that is ICIJ, and the UK-based Finance Uncovered, has uncovered the trail of at least 77 antiquities in New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art to a smuggler currently in custody in the country. Another 94 objects at the museum, reportedly from J&K, are proof of the challenge faced by the government in getting back the historical artifacts from repositories outside the country. The MT has no background detail on how these objects were moved out of India. They have no background detail. पता ही नहीं है ये कैसे गए. पता नहीं है कैसे गए, इसका मतलब वो स्मगल हुए हैं. स्मगल होके कहाँ जा रहे हैं? They are in various museums now. That means what? This part of the article is giving you the example, right? This part of the this paragraph is giving you one conclusion, that see, the government is facing a challenge in getting back these artifacts, the historical artifacts. And this part of the paragraph becomes a premise that see, these objects were taken away and the government has signed agreements with the museums. So you have the premise in the first part of the paragraph, right? Then you have the example that see, so many things, so many antiques or antiquities or antiquated, not antiquated, antiquities are present in the museum in New York, and these have been taken from various parts of the country. How? That is not known. तो कंक्लूजन क्या हुआ, मतलब कंक्लूजन इन द सेंस कि इससे पता चलता है कि दे आर प्रूफ ऑफ द चैलेंज फेस्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट इन गेटिंग बैक द हिस्टोरिकल आर्टिफैक्ट्स. हाउ दे रीच देयर इज नॉट नोन. So this point of the paragraph can come up with an with a conclusion, or it can come up with an inference based question कि हम इसमें से क्या समझ सकते हैं. Right. Now, since independence, only 486 artifacts have been reported missing from the monuments preserved by the Archaeological Survey of India. Experts, however, agree that there is a large gap between what is reported as missing and what is surfacing now in for 8 museums. कितनी चीजें मिस हुई हैं और कितनी चीजें रिपोर्ट की गई है और कितना एक्चुअली में गायब हो गई है, इसमें एक there is a discrepancy in the numbers. So estimates of missing pieces range between 500 and 50,000. Right? I'll just bring your attention to this part. Right? Here comes one small funda, I can say, a small nugget where the word between is always followed by the word and. और यहाँ पे अगर टू हो जाता तो बड़ा इजी हम लोग पढ़ के समझ लेते कि ये तो बिल्कुल सही लिखा है, लेकिन एक कॉम्बिनेशन है बिटवीन एंड का, which is a pair of conjunction, right? So estimates of missing pieces range between 500 and 5,000, 50,000. One part of the problem pertains to the ineptitude of law enforcement agencies. RTIs filed by this newspaper and police records accessed by it reveal that investigations into several cases of missing antiquities in J&K have been summarily closed, and FIRs are gathering dust. The FIRs are gathering dust मतलब धूल धूल लगी हुई है उन पे. गैदरिंग डस्ट यानी धूल लग रही है. दैट मीन्स नो वर्क बीइंग डन. सो कंटेक्चुअली इसका मीनिंग हो जाता है कि उस पे एफआईआर पे कोई काम नहीं हो रहा है, किसी ने ध्यान नहीं दिया है, और जो कुछ केसेस हैं वो भी क्लोज हो गए. बट द मोर प्रेसिंग कंसर्न is the ASI's inability to protect the objects it's mandated to safeguard. Report after report of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, including one last year, has pointed out that the agency has no vigilance or monitoring cell to function as a deterrence against theft of antiquities. So vigilant officers होते हैं, vigilant cells होते हैं. इसका मतलब एक डिपार्टमेंट, एक सेल ऐसा होना चाहिए जो कि एंटिक्विटीज पे नजर रखे, देखे कि कितनी है, उसका पूरा हिसाब रखे, and see whether something is being stolen or it is being moved from one to place to the other, or what is happening to these antiquities. And there is no such cell with the ASI, and therefore it is unable to protect these objects. ठीक है, जो कि उन्हें सेव करनी चाहिए, प्रोटेक्ट करनी चाहिए, गार्ड करना चाहिए, लेकिन वो नहीं हो पा रहा है. So all this is now being understood कि अच्छा अगर इनके पास एक सेल होता तो that is assumed that they are going to protect, or they will be able to protect these objects, right? So if I can talk about the assumptions, this part of the paragraph can come up with a question on assumption कि they are unable to protect. क्यों? क्योंकि इनके पास कोई सेल नहीं है. इसका मतलब assumption क्या हो सकता है कि अगर उनके पास एक विजिलेंट सेल होता तो वो आसानी से या वो कर पाते, they would be able to protect these antiquities. This would be the assumption then. Now, without autonomy from the Union Ministry of Culture, the ASI will not attract the best talent. In fact, as far back as 1984, the Mirza Committee had recommended that the agency should be accorded the status of a scientific and technical institution, enjoying autonomy in its functioning. So, without autonomy from the Union Minister of Culture, ASI मतलब ASI को दे देना चाहिए autonomy. यहाँ पर भी हम inference भी draw कर सकते हैं और इस sentence से हम assumption भी कर सकते हैं, समझ सकते हैं. मतलब it can come up with a question on implicit assumption, and it can come up with an inference drawn. ठीक है, if you read the sentence again, it has an implicit assumption. किसने क्या मान लिया? अब देखो इसी सेंटेंस से क्या मान लिया कि अगर एएसआई को ऑटोनॉमी मिल जाती है So it would be working well, right? The Mirza Committee had recommended that the agency should be accorded the status of a scientific and technical institution enjoying autonomy in its functioning. In 2005, a report of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, Tourism and Culture repeated this suggestion and drew attention to the ASI's inability to access the latest technology. So, archaeologists, for instance, have to depend on laboratories in the first world for analyzing pottery. So, they are not autonomous and they are dependent on the laboratories, the scientific ones. Now, in 2021, another Parliamentary Standing Committee report on tourism and culture listed lack of resources as one of the biggest challenges faced by the country's museums. At a time when the past has become a contested terrain, contest मतलब जिसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा dispute या काफी भी dispute हो सकता है, but terrain is territory, right? So territory, you have the root word terra also here. The imperative to equip these agencies with adequate resources, expertise, and the latest know how cannot be overstated. So that means it is necessary. Imperative is something that is for sure it is required. The government would do well to hit the message from this investigation. Would do well to hit the message from this investigation का मतलब हो गया कि ये जो investigation की गई है इससे गवर्नमेंट को कुछ ना कुछ लेसन तो ले ही लेना चाहिए अगर इसमें जो मैसेज दिया है राइट सो दैट मीन्स if the message that is conveyed through this investigation it is taken heed of by the government so the government is going to benefit right inference drawn deduced derived कुछ भी हो सकता है लॉजिकली डिराइव्ड हो सकता है इन्फ्रेंस कंक्लूजन पे एक क्वेश्चन आ सकता है देखो तुम्हारे पास अब सिंपल सा पैसेज सीमिंगली सिंपल था but then you can easily understand it in this manner that if it comes in a CR section you will be able to come up with the inference question conclusion question implied assumption question so you only need to change your way of thinking in the previous days article also I had told you to understand it according to the stakeholders. ये से stakeholders होते हैं तो अगर inference होता है तो you need to come up with something new. Conclusion होता है तो जो कुछ भी दिया हुआ है यहाँ पे premises plus assumption तो यहाँ से conclusion आ जाएगा. It would be a vertical thing from the given facts in the passage. Inference would be something that is drawn a new thing, a new idea, a new topic, an unknown thing that is drawn from whatever is given in the passage, right? Assumption is something that is taken for granted by the person who is writing, or in they can ask you the change in the question also. It could be that what is the assumption taken by the what do you say by the ASI, or what is the assumption taken by the author, or what is the assumption taken by the standing committee, राइट दिस पार्लियामेंट्री स्टैंडिंग कमिटी किसी के भी तरफ से assumption आ सकता है पूछा जा सकता है so you need to think according to that person's or that institute's or that committee's thought process according to that you think and then you will be able to come up with that person's or that organization's assumption ठीक है now see I have you have now understood how to take out the central idea तो यहाँ पे पता चल जाता है कि what will be the central idea of this article it is that see the ASI is not equipped well not equipped so well that it can take proper or keep a proper watch on these artifacts it requires a lot ये हो जाता है if it is given an autonomy it will be able to perform better keep a watch there that's it so that is in the technical know-how is needed तो अब ये suggestions हैं तो पहला ये था कि उनके पास इतनी इक्विपमेंट नहीं है दे आर नॉट वेल इक्विप्ड टू कम अप विथ और टू स्टॉप दिस what you can say is जो भी चोरी वोरी स्मगलिंग ऑफ दीज आर्टिफैक्ट्स ठीक है तो ये दो तीन चीजें समझ में आ जाती हैं अगर तो वी कैन इजीली मार्क द आंसर फॉर द सेंट्रल आइडिया राइट and if there's an objective type question you can come up with the message that it is trying to bring all these things in front of the government through the investigation that see the government will take notice and come up with the the help that the ASI requires, right? So that is the discussion. This is what you need to do when you are reading the passage. ये इस तरीके से हमारा दिमाग चारों तरफ चलना चाहिए. ठीक है, इसका मेन आइडिया राइट what was given there. ICIJ investigation carries a message. Equip ASI with expertise. See, ये हो गया इसका central idea. And resources to protect objects. It is mandated to. It is mandated to मतलब जो उसका काम है, जो उसे करना ही है, वो है protection of these objects, antiquities जो है. So it needs to be provided with the expertise also. And this is the message that the author is conveying through the investigation. Done. Right? Let's come up with the words that I was able to take out from this article. Ferment, वैसे fermentation is a scientific process. ये तुमने पढ़ा भी होगा कई बार, उसमें आ जाता है fermentation. पर यहाँ पे अगर culture fermentation हो रहा है तो you can come up with this agitation. एक word होता है, ठीक है. commotion या confusion is likewise used where ये एजिटेशन यानी ऐसे कई सारी चीजें मिक्सअप हो रही हैं. तो ये कमोशन जो है वो हेरिटेज वाली कल्चर और हेरिटेज में है. इन दैट वे द वर्ड फर्मेंट इज बीइंग यूज्ड. साइंस बेस्ड अगर फर्मेंट आप फर्मेंटेशन एक प्रोसेस यूज करेंगे तो यू कैन नो अबाउट द यीस्ट. You have read about yeast, you have read about or you have eaten dokla, so you have read about how it is made, you have eaten this idli, so you know how these things are made. तो वो एक थोड़ा साइन वाला अलग हो जाता है. रिपैट्रिएट ये कई बार न्यूज़पेपर्स में आता है जब कोई अपनी कंट्री छोड़ के भाग जाता है, या तो all those scandals or scams that are there, no? So it is banished, oust or exile. देश से बाहर निकाल देना, जो निकले हुए उनको वापस ले आना. Illicit, illegal, illegitimate, unlawful. Repositories are like depositories. ठीक है, सोर्सेस भी हो सकते हैं, माइंस भी हो सकते हैं, क्योंकि वहां पे चीजें डिपॉजिट की जाती हैं. तो स्टोर हाउसेस जैसा होता है. स्टोर हाउस हो सकता है, वेयर हाउस हो सकता है. Ineptitude. Inept is somebody who is not talented, not skilled. Inept is not skilled, right? The ineptitude is the quality of being not skilled. So inept is clumsy. The quality of being clumsy is the clumsiness. Maladroit, maladroitness and incompetence. तो आप ineptitude को maladroitness से relate कर सकते हो, क्योंकि इस inept का opposite हो जाता है adept. और adept का मतलब होता है ADEPT है, ठीक है. adept का मतलब होता है adroit, skilled, talented, right? तो adept is adroit and skilled. adept का opposite inept हो जाता है, that is not skilled. और inept की quality ineptitude. Vigilance, we know the vigil is to keep watch on, so alertness, watchfulness, attentiveness. Deterrence is to deter, means to stop. Right? किसी को रोक देना या खुद को रोक देना. It did not deter me. The heights of the mountains or the intimidating heights of the mountains did not deter the mountaineer or the climbers. द ट्रेकर्स, कुछ भी कर सकते हो. कि इंटिमिडेटिंग हाइट्स का मतलब होता है बिल्कुल डॉन्टिंग ना, डराने वाली, कॉजिंग फियर. तो ऐसी हाइट्स थी, या कोई देख के बोले इतना ऊंचा हम कैसे चढ़ेंगे, तो माउंट एवरेस्ट देखकर या बाकी के हाइट्स देखकर माउंटेन्स की इतनी हाइट्स थी, उसके बावजूद उसे डर नहीं लगा. राइट? सो द इंटिमिडेटिंग हाइट्स ऑफ द माउंटेन्स डिड नॉट डिटर द ट्रेकर्स. फाइन. सो डिटर इज टू अवॉइड, टू स्टॉप, dissuade. और मैंने डिड नॉट डेटर कहा है सेंटेंस में, ठीक है. मतलब उतनी हाइट्स थी, हाइट्स ने भी उन्हें नहीं रोका, इसका मतलब अल्टीमेटली उन्होंने क्लाइंब किया वो माउंटेन. सो अवॉइडेंस, डिस्युएशन एंड प्रियम्पशन. एक प्रियम्प्टिव मेजर्स करते हैं. प्रियम्प्टिव मेजर्स का मतलब होता है कि पहले से ही कुछ होने वाला है, लेकिन उसे प्रिवेंट करने के लिए हमने कुछ स्टेप्स लिए. So these are called the preemptive measures. This is used, preemptive measures. This comes in the newspapers. कहीं ना कहीं यूज हो जाते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट क्या कर सकती है रोकने के लिए. Terrain is territory, topography या landscape. What I gave you was terra is land. So that is one of the root word. इसीलिए terrain आ जाता है, territory आ जाता है. एक और आ जाता है हमारे पास एक वर्ड, जैसे terra incognito. So that land that is not known. Then imperative is something that is vital, और क्योंकि वो imperial से word आ जाता है, imperative हो जाता है, तो वो domineering भी हो सकता है. ठीक है. And heed, of course, you know, but I still took this word. So heed, care, note, something to be noted, something to be paid attention to, or to be cared. So usually the advice goes unheeded. ठीक है, ये वर्ड इस तरीके से यूज किया जाता है. टू गो अनहीडेड का मतलब होता है कि देखो हम एडवाइस तो देते हैं तुम्हें, एवरी डे आई टेल यू दैट सी यू नीड टू रीड दिस, you need to follow this, and if you have not done, so kindly read the or listen to the previous recordings also, date wise, right? This is what I give you, this is what I advise you to improve on your RC as well as in your vocabulary, to enrich your vocabulary. ये सब advice होती है, पर फिर भी कुछ लोग होंगे जो इस advice पे ध्यान नहीं देते हैं, so my advice goes unheeded. That is how it is used, right? So I hope you keep listening to these recordings, the previous ones, whichever you have missed because of your exams and all. So that's it for today. Thank you and have a very logical day ahead. Take care.